Hello everybody, welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown podcast, and I'm joined today by a very special guest in René Meulensteen, who was the Manchester United assistant coach from 2007 to 2013. And today we're going to speak about everything Manchester United, tactics and technical. First of all, good morning René, thank you very much for coming on, I really do appreciate it. Why don't you tell everyone who doesn't know somehow your career, your past 2 decades in football, how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, well, funny enough, I started coaching already when I was 16. I was born obviously in Holland in a small village. I was at the football club every single day, and I helped out a coach who was working with on the 8s, on the 9s, and he said, listen, why you're always here, why don't you help us? And I started doing it, I liked it, I enjoyed it, and after 3 weeks he packed it in because he was too busy with his job. So I took over, and then quickly after that I started to do my first badges, etc. And I just carried on ever since, really. I came to England in the 90s to do my badges here because I always felt in Holland it would have been a bit difficult for me to get onto the pro license at some point. But there's one thing I think that sticks out of it all is the interest I had in a Curver coaching. Will Curver was the coach that came up with that skill development program at a young age. And I believed in his philosophy, and I basically chased him down. I almost sort of stalked him. But it worked to some extent because eventually he's invited me to come over to work with him in Qatar in '93, which I did. So I worked with him for the FA. We set up the whole organisation around on the 8s, on the 10s, on the 12s. There was nothing there. Predominantly for him to develop players that he could use for his DVDs and videos. And I was sort of part of that. So that was great. I also got the opportunity then to manage 2 teams in Qatar very successfully. Al Ittihad at the time, which is now called Al Gharafa, but we won the Arab Cup. We won another prestigious cup. The year after it was Al Sadd, which was one of the bigger teams in Qatar. Yeah. And then, funny enough, I got a call from Dave Richardson, who was working for the PFA to sort all the academies out. And I was going over for a conference in Nottingham, and I was going to meet David anyway, and he said, listen, I had a phone call from Les Kershaw, the academy manager at the time at Manchester United. He loves to meet you because they are looking for a skills coach, and they say they couldn't find anybody in England, and I recommended you. So that's how I got to know Les, and Les has been, a very important person for me in my career and supported me in all the things that I did. But in '93, eventually I got a phone call from Sir Alex Ferguson as well. I went over in January when we had a break in the league, and I started the job as skills development coach in 2001 at Manchester United. So I tried to implement that skills development program, development centres, in the advanced centre. So a lot of players, even Marcus Rashford is obviously still now playing for the first team, but Scott McTominay, who's obviously left Man United now, but Danny Welbeck, Tom Cleverley, and just heaps of players that came through that sort of program. Yeah. And that skills development aspect, I managed to convince Sir Alex Ferguson that there was still room for improvement for first team players. Nice. And if you can make that difference, add that 1%, and it adds up with all the players. You talk about 10%, and that 10% might win you more games, therefore more trophies. And he bought into that. He gave me the opportunity to start working with Diego Forlan, Cristiano Ronaldo, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Giggsy, and all of them. And eventually I was sort of the go-in-between that if players got injured, I could then do some work with him. And I always used the word add rather than change with those players, because obviously those players play at the highest level. And if you use the word change, they go, whoa, what do you mean? Yeah. What are we doing wrong? If you use the word add is more. They like to know what it is. Yeah. So if I was discussing with any of the players, let's say even Louis Saha, I work with, and say, listen, Louis, if we add this to your game, you're going to be more.
Then they're chomping at the bit to get the extra.
So that was good. It gave obviously Sir Alex Ferguson and all the members of staff an opportunity to see me coach with first team players. Eventually, I had a quick brief stint away in Denmark and Brøndby that didn't work out. I came back, which I'm still grateful for Sir Alex to bring me back, because I think he also saw the benefit of me, getting me closer to the first team. And when Carlos Queiroz left Manchester United in 2007, it was no problem for him to promote me to first team coach. Mick became the assistant manager, and that was the introduction to the 6 years, really the most successful period of the history of Manchester United. And I look back on that and I think to myself, that was just unique.
I was going to ask you about that period because obviously, as many Manchester United fans like myself, I think in 2007-08 there was a chance to get another treble. Obviously Portsmouth lost in the cup and stuff like that, but you actually look at the trophies that were won, and there were 14 trophies won in the seasons that you were there with Sir Alex Ferguson, obviously until Sir Alex Ferguson retired. I think it's, if you want to do averages, I think it's like 3 trophies a season, which is ridiculous. And I just wanted to ask you about that. So obviously, is that the best? I think that is probably going to be the best best team you've ever coached, the 07-08 team.
Yeah, it was a privilege to be part of. Because the thing with that squad was it was so balanced. We had a lot of experienced players, with Edwin van der Sar, with Rio, with Pad, with Scholesy, with Giggsy. We had a lot of physicality in the team, a lot of power in the team. We had a lot of emerging players with Rooney, with Ronaldo, with Nani and all of them, Valencia. And it was just a really great balance. But things and foremost is that Sir Alex Ferguson over the years had instilled such a strong, work ethic and winning mentality. That's what impressed me most of those players. These players, every time they stepped on the training pitch, they wanted to work, right? We expected like a world-class performance of those players 3 times a week. You know what I mean? Whether it was domestically or in Europe. The manager always said to me, listen, we need to provide them with world-class support on and off the pitch. And remember, Rene, everything you do in training will manifest itself in the game. And I've always put that in the back of my head. So I always wanted to make sure that those sessions were purposeful, were challenging. I always worked around 2 main aspects, intensity and quality, because those are interlinked. And if you do that, players enjoy it, because nothing to forget, even if the highly paid professionals, when you really tap into what makes them tick, it's the passion. It's the passion for the football, it's the love for the club. And it was an absolutely great period to be part of. People
always said that the training sessions in that era, all the United players of that era, when you speak to them, they always say that the training sessions were harder than the actual matches. And obviously that's alluding to what you're saying there with the intensity and the physicality and the quality ultimately. I think obviously you said there you're coming after Carlos Queiroz, who was supposed to be the guy that Sir Alex Ferguson brought in to kind of adapt and move forward. And we spoke about this prior, but do you think ultimately in the eras that you coached in, the Manchester United teams that you coached, people kind of underrate your ability to go into games and adapt and to be tactical and think on your feet? Or do you believe that? Because it feels like there is sort of like a frowned upon against the noughties Manchester United teams, even up to when Ferguson left. I don't know. It just seems to be like this thing that people thought you were just quality instead of having amazing coaching.
It's a combination of the two, 100%. Because what I liked about it, we were very clear. I mean, and the manager was very clear to me, and it's maybe interesting to explain that, because when he moved Mick up as assistant manager, he brought me in as first team coach. He brought me into his office. He had a flip chart there, and on the flip chart, he said, basically, Rene, I've written down here that when I close my eyes, this is the best Man United that I see, right? And he said to me, listen, if Manchester United defend, right, I want us to be able to defend, really press high, really aggressively, don't let them out, blah, blah. In other games, I like us to drop off. We press an area or we press certain players to be able to create spaces in transition, to go forward and hurt them. There will be times that we have to drop deep, no problem at all. We nullify the chances, but then it's all about counter-attack. So we then spring from box to box. Great examples of the games against Arsenal. It's like we were like the Red Arrows. You know what I mean?
That is like one of the most satisfying goals.
Unbelievable. But we did this. I manufactured a lot of sessions with that box-to-box running, with, let's say, 8 mannequins in the middle, representing like 4, let's say, two bands of 4. And then people have to run through. So there was little combinations, third man runs and all that. So that was the defensive side. Obviously, we need to look after the defensive set pieces as well. In possession, he said, possession is key because that will give us the initiative. but it always has to have a purpose. And the purpose is for us to go forward, create chances, and score goals. The most important thing in possession is rhythm. The best teams in the world, they create the rhythm, they maintain the rhythm, or they change it. So in other words, if we play out from the back, we might be a little bit cautious and this and that and the other. But when we break lines and it gets congested, the rhythm has to chase to one-touch football and movement, right?
Yeah.
Within that possession, there were a few golden rules. One was think forward, look forward, play forward. The manager hated it when the ball was played back. That was the last option.
Yeah.
You go square to go forward, or you go back, to then go forward. But the key is every player had to think forward, look forward, play forward. The other thing was when players had time on the ball, centre back, centre midfielders, movement. Yeah. Forward runs. Or players coming in the pockets. We wanted both. You know what I mean? Depending on how deep the opposition was set up. So that was from a possession point of view. A lot of times, when you do win the ball back, it was always, was it regain attack or was regain retain? Yeah. That's what the players had to understand. Okay. Depending on opposition, where you are in the game, the score on the board. And then the last bit was those things that we spoke to before, the attacking things. And he said, when he flipped it, this is the most important thing. This is what United is, in my opinion. He says, when we attack with pace, power, penetration, unpredictability. And all those things that you see on those flip charts, basically, I want you to instill in that team every single day. So on 3 flip charts, there was my whole, navigation system for all my sessions.
Because you knew what you were coaching.
Exactly, and that was coming back in everything that we did, whether it was a finishing drill, a conditioned game, small-sided games. Those elements was always coming back. I reminded the players constantly about that. Yeah. And then you come back to the quality of the players to execute it. And again, back to the squad that we had experience, a lot of intelligence, a lot of physicality, and a lot of young, talent and emerging players.
Would you say there, you're always coming back to the quality of the players, and obviously you were filthy rich in terms of quality. Do you think that the technical quality has to be a certain level to execute like high-end tactical ideas?
100%.
100%.
The reason, because that enhances that unpredictability, and creativity. The thing was us with that, from a defensive side, we had clear structures. Yeah. Right. If we wanted to press high, we worked on cues. Whether we went for like a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-4, whatever it was, whether we wanted the ball go to the left back or the right back, and we had cues in terms of we close them down. It was pressing, was also about closing down, chasing and hunting. Yeah. That basically the 3 phases. So closing down was not pressed through, because then with an easy move they can outplay you. You force the player, you press the player in an area where he suddenly thinks, oh, what I'm doing now. Now, ideally, we wanted them to play the ball back. We called it on the negative, and we pressed on the negative. So the moment the ball went back,
that's your trigger.
Boom, everybody got. That's the trigger. Then and then chase, hunt, and then you had the ball winners.
So do you, what you're describing there is kind of like, you don't believe in people who are, I think they call it like just pressing space, where they're chasing the ball back, but then when the ball gets to a certain position, they stop running and they've recouped 10 yards of space in the backline's got higher. Do you think that once the pressing trigger's gone, you keep going for the ball until it's turned over?
That's
the hunt.
Yeah, that's the hunt. And I think nowadays in this game, and you see it, that teams try to play away from that press, and some are really good, some are not so good. Yeah. But even the teams are that good from, let's say, the 10 times you press them, they might even really come out of that and turning that, playing out from the press into an attack, maybe once, maybe twice. Now and then you lean on your rest defence, and making sure that everything behind is making sure that is.
I think that's where the Manchester United team, especially the one that you're talking about there, had just such balance in the back line. Because obviously, like Rio Ferdinand and Nemanja Vidic, who are obviously physical, fast, strong, powerful, as we've spoke about before there. So I think, what would you say to managers who are maybe trying to play a certain way without the technical or physical quality, would you say they're lacking pragmatism? Like you're saying there, where Manchester United have these kind of 3 blocks that they can play in. So we can play in the transition, we can play in the block, and we can play with the ball. Would you say that managers who are maybe refusing to adapt to the level of the squad, the level of the physicality, would you say they're maybe naive, lacking pragmatism, lacking adaptability?
As a manager, you always want to make it work for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the way, if you want to play pressing, you need to have certain attributes. First of all is the attitude, the mental aspect of it, wanting to do it, right? That's the biggest thing. If that's not right, it doesn't matter, because people switch off, and if one of 2 persons are not doing the right thing, that's when opposition gets the chance to play away from it. So the mental aspect is important. One, that drives everything. Then you need the physicality, you need legs, you need energy, you need intensity. So if you haven't got that in certain areas, you'll fall short. You know what I mean? Unless you are in a really good structure in terms of making sure that
protected.
that everything is connected. And because if the distances are too big, whether horizontally or vertically, then still they find ways to outplay you. Managers, like I said, sometimes in football people start to copy what other successful managers do. But if you haven't got the qualities to play that way, then you have to come up with a different, because otherwise it will go against probably what the players are capable of executing. Yeah. So it backfires.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
I mean, like you look at, for instance, an example. You see Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola City. Clear identity, clear style. Yeah. Klopp, all about energy, intensity, dynamic, right? Go forward, go quick, go with pace. Man City is knee hole surgery. That's what it is. Yeah, it's like surgery. They have, 400, 500, 800 passes. You know what I mean? And they just weave themselves.
Yeah,
and
death by 1,000 passes.
They just pick players off exactly, and they go through, and then they try to penetrate, and little penetrating runs. They always have the width. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then little dart and run. So it's 2 different styles. Very effective. Both very effective. I think Man United under Sir Alex Ferguson was a combination of both.
Okay.
I think, because when we faced opposition that was really, dropping really deep at that time, I can remember like a Bolton or like a Stoke. So you basically play with 21 players in one half. Yeah. And then you have to keep moving the ball. You have to play them in, play out. What I mean by that is you need to get players in between, in the pockets behind the midfielders, but you play them in and you come out. Yeah. Until you find the right penetrating pass or the switch of play. Yeah. To go. What we always used to work. I always used to work with the midline, so to speak. Now you've got people that work in channels, but I always, very simple, use use the midline, because if the ball was on the left-hand side, the opposition would always squeeze to the midline. So if you have players on the opposite side, that's what the space is.
That's what City do. Kind of like they're always stretching, and I think they call it like you overload one side, isolate the other. Exactly. And you're constantly creating them kind of situations where the block's got to go rushing out and stuff like that. But I do agree. I think exactly what you're saying there. Would you, obviously you said the combination of the 2 was kind of the identity. Would you, is there one style that you kind of prefer? Do you prefer a Jurgen Klopp kind of intense style, or do you prefer like a slower possession game?
No. I like energy and intensity. I've always liked that. But even when you keep the ball, you can still do that with a certain pace. I don't really necessarily what you see now at times where it almost becomes walking football. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because the opposition is happy to sit in. You see the centre backs put the foot on the ball. He's not jumping. Yeah. So they're just going left. So nothing is happening.
Yeah, that's one thing we see.
But I do like a really quality interpassing team. Really move the ball quick, one touch football, bang, bang, bang. All back through that stuff. You know what I mean? When they get really laboured sort of thing, fine. At times there's a time for everything, but it shouldn't become the main thing. Sometimes you do need, like I said, you sometimes need to change your rhythm, slow it down a little bit, but then you have to be able to speed it up again. Yeah. And I think what I said before, I think these ingredients of the players, and it sounds simple, but they are massively important. The players understand that, because it affects their attitude. Think forward, look forward, play forward. Yeah. Time on the ball, movement, forward run. That is one thing I have to say. how important Bruno Fernandes is in this Manchester United team, because he's got the vision and plays the ball. You saw that yesterday again in that game against West Ham. But if Bruno Fernandes is on the ball, that's one of the cues, one of the triggers. Rashford is running, Garnacho is running, because you didn't know he can find him, and you saw that yesterday in a few occasions. You know, and you've seen it in other games. You know, the problem is they haven't capitalised on it.
Would you say, a lot of people have kind of said this, would you say he's one player that you look at post your tenure who could compete in them old United teams? Yeah,
I think he's got similar qualities to, you know, what Paul Scholes had. You know what I mean? Always, you know, he's got great energy, always looking forward. He's maybe at times, I think, defensively maybe a bit indisciplined, but that is more of his eagerness. His eagerness to do well. And but especially when you, as a team, decide to press, everybody has to do the job. You cannot just go, right, I'm just going to run after the goalkeeper. If other ones are not, you know, right, because centre-backs drop, bang, you lose one player, and then, you know,
you're gone.
You're off you go. But on the ball, his quality is, you know, undeniable, you know, and he's a threat. You know, he can create assists and create chances, and he can score goals himself.
What would you say in the years you were there was your maybe proudest trophy or proudest final? Would it be the Champions League, or would it be a Premier League where? I
think still the Premier League. Obviously, we've had a few really good runs. Obviously, in the Champions League, winning the one against Chelsea, which as well, part of that was also making sure that you prepare 90 minutes plus. So we did, you know, practice the penalties, and people always say, you know, penalties is a lottery. No, you make it a lottery if you don't prepare it.
How much of the penalty shootout against Chelsea was prepared? Like with Van der Sar, was it?
Yeah, everything. Everything. Everything was prepared. Eric Steele prepared Edwin in terms of, you know, the potential takers of Chelsea. But then again, I think it's important. You know, I wasn't that much involved with that, but I saw the preparation taking place. But I'm sure that Carlos had a clear order, you know, in place, and the players that if you make substitution, always be careful, right? Because if you take a penalty taker off, that's a certainty. You have to be aware of that. But that was one thing, and that was obviously a great achievement. But then the years after, because obviously the Champions League is you know, if not one of the highest trophies you can win, although the Premier League is the hardest. It's because it's so many games.
It's the best team.
Exactly, and you play so many games and all that. So we obviously came up twice against Barcelona, who was obviously emerging under Pep Guardiola. Fantastic teams. Basically, Pep then started to introduce that tiki-taka football, a bit of possession-based, really passing people to death, something we weren't really acquainted to in the Premier League, so we had to come to terms with that.
How hard was that to prepare for? Because Gary always talks about it being like the first time he's ever seen, obviously we see teams do the split centre-halves in the 6-yard box now on goal kicks, but he was saying that they were so wide and so deep, and he'd never seen anything like it before. Yeah,
it was, but it was also that, Pep had the team already then to that stage that all those players believed in that way of playing, which involves a bit of risk because you're keeping the ball. No matter what, and at the back, it's 1v1. He would tell Piqué and Puyol, listen guys, fullbacks are on because he pushed the wingers inside or in the pockets. Fullbacks are on, you just sort it out, you two. Not start crying if somebody's not back, you know what I mean? You have to sort it out. If you can't do that, you're not good enough. Now that's a big thing.
Yes, huge.
You know, because in England there's all this golden rule. No, always make sure you got 2 + 1, 3 + 1, or whatever. So it was just a combination of, you know, when I looked at it and we were trying to prepare for it, you know, which we did in the run up to the Chelsea final when we drew 0-0 and Ronaldo missed a penalty and we won 1-0. That was a really good, solid defensive performance, but it was a little bit unlike Man United. You understand? Because Man United is all, no. You worry about us.
Right? But that was the first time someone had come to Old Trafford.
Yes, and fine, if it works and you get away from it, but, you know, if you would ask the players, you know, is that the way? No, because I always say teams that have the ball, like Barcelona, too often people show too much respect. And therefore, you know, they stop playing football themselves. Whereas those teams, what they don't want to do is to defend. So you need to make them defend. But again, that's where it really matters when you do regain the ball. What do you do with it? Because they had the 5-second rule. They lost it, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
That was another element which teams had to come to terms with.
Yeah.
So then the key is to play away from that pressure as quick as you can. So you need really good footballers in the team, you know, that are not afraid to hold the ball or shield the ball or find a clever pass away. And then you can really cause problems. Now, we did that in certain stages of the game. If you look at both games backward, you know, that we did in both stages of the game. The one trend, especially in Wembley as well, was that in that particular season, Barcelona used to go for the throat in the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half. That was clear evident. They came out of the blocks, press. Really, the pressure was so high, and most of the time they scored. They did it against us. We weren't at the races in that respect, because we were very clear in saying, listen, we know this is going to happen. Make sure that, because it was 1-1 at half time, nothing wrong with that. Yes, we had some good spells in the first half where we were a little bit unlucky because we were trying to hit the space, and I think Chicharito was very close with the goalkeeper, you know what I mean, because they get the balls in behind. They then got the goal, 1-1, fine, not a problem. If we would have stayed in that game, 1-1, with maybe 20 minutes on the clock, we would have probably been able to swing that game in our favor, because we had better players to come on. You know, and if they would have had to make changes, they would have probably take the first one, you know, out, and it would have not, you know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and the bench that day was just it's one of them. If the game would have been a bit longer, then you could have maybe seen different.
I mean, it's always in hindsight, but that. So in terms of you coming back at the proudest moments, it's all a massive achievement. You know, to win the Champions League, also to go and get to the final. You know, and you sure that was great achievements, but. The real trophies are, you know, the Premier League. I have to say, the ones, you know, everyone is unique because every Premier League season has got its own story. Yeah. You know, where you got you lose games, you think to yourself, you know, how could we ever lose this? Or and some great wins along the way. But I think even, you know, the last one, 12 and 13, because there was such a determination about everybody to put right what went wrong in the 11-12 season before, and we did that in a great style.
How instrumental was Robin van Persie to that massive title? Massive, because, you know, we were discussing it, and I can still remember having the discussions with the manager about him, because you know, it came to my ear that he didn't want to sign for Arsenal. He wanted to move, and he was very keen to play for Manchester United, especially for Sir Alex Ferguson. So it was one of those. We had Manchester United at the time had a bit of a policy. You know, we didn't want to sign players over a certain age, young and upcoming players, because obviously we did have. But I did feel, and also with other players, speaking to senior players like Rio and Giggsy and Scholesy and all of them, and I sort of tested the water a little bit and said, listen, if you could pick one player from a big 6 team.
From these players, and I mentioned, who did I think it was like Motherich, it was from Persie, and even Adebayor at the time I think was playing. You know what I mean? And sort of, you know, without giving anything away. But I could sense they were all, you know, from Persie, a lot of respect, the way that he plays, the way he moves, and, you know, and Robin obviously played in the Premier League for so long, never won the Premier League, so he was so keen and determined to come here and do well, and he did. He was fantastic.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. He's probably one of the most technical number 9s I think I've seen in terms of the completeness.
Yeah, he's unique, he's different. He wasn't a sprinter.
No, he was
although he wasn't a physical battler, although he was strong.
Yeah, big, strong.
But he glided.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he had this exquisite skill and technique, and, you know, eye for goal. He was a great finisher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He could caress the ball. He could volley it. You know what I mean? He could, you know, pass it in.
Yeah. His goal catalogue from that season, the different types of goals he scored in that season. Yeah. It was just like, he had every finishing.
Yeah. The one I'm most proud of was really the goal that won us the league against Aston Villa, because that came straight from the training ground. I really remember.
Oh, really?
100% house. I did a training session after we finished training. I got Rafa and Fabio right and left back. I had Scholes and Rooney in the midfield, and I had Chicharito and Robin up front with the two centre-back mannequins. Yeah. And all it was that, let's say, I was sort of in the middle, so I could play the ball to Fabio or to Rafa. Yeah. When that happened, when the ball went that way, this midfielders had to come across. So he was away, so Scholes got on the ball, or Rooney, whatever it was. He got the ball. The moment that happened, they too switched. And he came on the backside. So it was always a diagonal pass for a straight run on the back of the centre-back, because Vlaar was the centre-back at Aston Villa at the time. And me and Robin discussed that. And he said he struggles with balls on the blind side over the top. But with Robin, and that is some work I had to do with our midfield players, Robin is very, very clever in timing the runs, but it's just a small window. And you need to grasp it, otherwise it's too late, it's offside. So that's why we made these connections. And, you know, so skull balls over the top and all this and that and the other, and then bring it down or hit it on. And it was just straight from the training ground. It was such a...
One of them where you, especially to cap off such a good league run. Like,
it's just one of those that you just sit there and think, Jesus, this is everything you do is just...
Yeah, just clicks right into place. No, that's beautiful. That's a brilliant story, honestly. And then moving on, obviously, to another player who probably is one of the best players you've coached. I found a quote here from you that said, "My aim was to bring Ronaldo from awareness to understanding."
Yeah.
And I really love this quote because I want you to talk about, I read how he got suspended and then that gave you the time to work with him.
Yeah.
So... What was that actually like? Because that's kind of surreal to me, especially because that would have been the Ballon d'Or season.
Yeah. Again, it was one of those where you first have to, because when players, they like to train and practice in a team setting.
Yeah.
So obviously when they walk out in the training place and you just see me there and say, what are we going to do? You know what I mean? And I basically had this chat, and what I liked about Cristiano, he was very receptive. You know, when you started talking about football, and I think I sort of hit the right button with him when I said, listen, you know, again, when, you know, I want to bring you from a player that can score a goal to a goal scorer.
Oh, right, okay.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And we discussed about, you know, how many goals have you scored, and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I think previously he said about 23. So what's your aim for today, you know, for the next year? What's your target? Because I spoke a little bit about how successful people are that have clear aims and targets, you know, and devise strategies to get there. People that haven't, basically doesn't matter. So, and he said, well, 30. And I said, okay, 30, okay. And he said to me, what do you think? So I think 40. And he looked at me, he says, that's nearly double. He says, yes, but we haven't really worked on the aspects to bring you awareness to understanding. And the awareness is all about that, is Cristiano Ronaldo aware of his strengths, his areas that need to be improving, of his position, where he plays, and everything, and especially around the finishing thing. What I did was I worked with him and I showed him a diagram where there was a goal and there were two lines from the post all the way to the edge of the box. And I called it zone 1. So this is the best goal scoring zone you can be in. Because when you're in here, you're mostly central in front of the goal, goalkeeper's in the middle, so you can score anywhere. Low left, low right, high, whatever, yeah? Then I drew 2 lines from the post to the edges, to the corners of the box.
Yeah.
So you get this sharp triangle.
Like a funnel. Yeah.
I call that left 2, right 2. This is actually the area where the most goals are scored from.
Yeah.
And most likely you will find the defender in front of you. So what are the options there? Now, if there's somebody in front of you, you need to try to beat him towards zone 1 because your chances to score increase. Because if you beat him on the outside, you then end up in zone 3, which is another triangle which borders the byline. So the angle to score
is sharper.
Is very sharp.
Yeah.
Now the thing is this, the goal will never move. The goalkeeper does. So when you get into zone left 2 or 3, you always know that, and therefore you need to be aware where you are, but then you need to understand what kind of finish is the best one for me to score. And then I had the goal divided in target areas. You know what I mean? Like about 9. You had 3 in the middle, 3 in the right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we did loads of exercises, loads where the ball was played in, crossed in. It was a 1-touch finish, 2-touch finish, and everything. And bit by bit he started, because the biggest thing, Cristiano had always had this idea about him. He wanted to always score the most important goal and the most beautiful goal. And I wanted to make him understand. I said, no, you need to score as many goals as you can. And that most important goal and the most beautiful goal will be in there anyway.
Yeah.
So even the little tap-ins, the simple goals, They all count. So I sort of said to him, from now on, you're going to play with an imaginary rucksack on there. And every goal you score, every single one, no matter whether it's in a small goal, in training, in finishing, in games, the moment it goes in, it counts.
Yeah.
The counter starts going and it keeps on clicking every time you score. And obviously, a lot of the stuff, or some of the stuff that we did, I sort of filmed, you know, to have to sit him down and have it back. I think one of the biggest things that also made a massive impression on him, and I made a sort of like a 3-minute video of the top strikers United has had. You know, with York, Cole, Sheringham, Solskjaer, Van Nistelrooy. And there was a variety of goals there. It was like bang, 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 fine. So I asked him, what did you see? And he said, yeah, a lot of goals. I said, no. What did you see? He says, I'm going to show the video again, and then I want you to tell me what did you see. And he says, okay. It says, most of the goals are scored within the box. Most of the goals are scored 1 touch or 2 touch. And 3, there's a variety of goals. There's headers, there's volleys, there's tap-ins and all that. It says, right, these 3 things, that's exactly what we're going to do on the pitch. Yeah. In that pitch with all the zones.
Yeah.
So in that period that I had a lot of time, sometimes I had an extra player, or, you know, obviously I want to work with goalkeepers, but if I didn't have goalkeepers, I put a mannequin there, so I had him making sure he hit targets. It's always, again, purpose challenge. Yeah. Purpose challenge. Yeah. But that was a period where I could consistently do a lot. So it wasn't like we did one session and it took me a week. No, it was day after day after day after day. You know what I mean? And on top of that, doing the stuff outside the pitch to make him aware of the fact and understand how important having clear aims and clear targets are, to work towards it. Yeah. And you're working with a strategy, you work with purpose. You know, you see yourself working towards something. So in that season, I remembered, I think it was around the 28th of January, I remember, he scored his 30th goal. Yeah. And I said to him, he says, that's it. Season is over, you scored 30 goals. And he says, no, I'm going to try to hit your target now. I'll try to go for 40. And he did. And he's obviously scored, I think, in...
Nearly 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but in that season...
Oh, in that
season, I think he scored about 40, I don't know, it could be 46 or 44, I don't know exactly. But he went over the 40 mark. Yeah.
Do you think he's probably the most, people call it like relentless attitude? Did you already see that at like them ages where it was just like this kid properly wants to learn, like he's relentless in the way he wants to improve? He was so determined. He knew clearly, because I still remember when I caught him off guard. When I told him, I said, I know exactly what you want, Cristiano. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I know exactly what you want. You want to become the best player in the world. Not once, you know, for many years. And he looked at me like, you know, and he said, it's true, isn't it? He said, yeah. He says, will you be the best player in the world tomorrow? He says, no. Next month? No. Next year? No. So, okay, now we've got a timeline. Yeah. So when do we want to, and what do we need to do? So again, back to the effectiveness of 2 things. Also his skills. Yeah. Right? I said, you need to use your skills to hurt people. You need to build mental resilience, because people will find ways to stop you, and most of the time they're going to kick you. So you need to be able to handle that, and you need to be more clinical in your goal scoring. Those 3 things. Yeah. You know, that package. If you do that, you're going to be more important to the team. You're going to score more goals. Man United will win more games. Therefore, Man United win more trophies. Yeah. Therefore, you become more important. And that's when you're going to end up being the best player in the world. No, that's No, it's just been he's just one of them, innit? Like when he was coming through, I was just thinking to myself, I was like, it's unlike anything you've ever seen. And obviously Manchester United have only had a couple Ballon d'Or winners actually win the Ballon d'Or at Manchester United, and that, for him to do it there in that season, was just brilliant. What did you make of kind of his? He went from being kind of, when he come through at Manchester United, there was a shift in terms of being a left winger, sometimes played on the right, and then he was like a forward, and then he went to Real Madrid and they played him off the left, and then eventually worked towards a striker. And you're saying there about the development of his finishing and the type of goals he started to score, and then he moved straight to a number 9 later on in his career. Yeah. Did you always think that kind of the way he was developing physically, did you think that he was going to become a number 9?
Yeah, well, he had the ability to do it and play there because I can remember in one of the Champions League against Arsenal.
The header.
But we used him as a 9 because we wanted him to make those runs into the corners.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To drag, the centre backs out, and he had the ability to hold on to the ball or maybe beat the player. Plus the fact when other ones were coming forward, he had the ability to get in the box and then score. But we always sort of sold it to Cristiano as well, as he says, you're not a left winger, you're not a right winger, you are a left winger striker.
Yeah.
You're a right winger striker. Because we want to get you in the box if the game develops on the right hand side. Because, another element we worked on really, really hard was his heading. Because he had an enormous lead, but his technique initially wasn't that great. So when he found that as well, again he had another weapon.
Yeah.
And he loved it, to rise and stay up in the air and then bang. So we always saw him as a bit of a double, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we had whether we played with Berbatov as a striker or Wayne or whatever, most of the time I thought it was by far more effective if we had Cristiano coming in from the left. Plus he could come in and shoot from outside the box.
Yeah. Well, that's what he had in that season when he first moved to Madrid. Half of the goals were literally just inside, straight across.
100%.
Moving from the Manchester United of the past to what Manchester United has become now, what have you made of? This is a very broad question, but what have you made of Manchester United in the past decade in terms of the level of the team? Kind of the unsustainability. It's just chopped, changed, gone this direction. They've sacked the manager, gone that direction. What do you make of what's happened in the past?
What has happened is that Manchester United has moved under the Sir Alex Ferguson era from in a very successful period was based on stability and continuity. Same manager, clear vision about how to be successful. In the short term, but also how to maintain that over longer periods. Hence, building a few successful squads.
Yeah.
And that stability has to do with obviously the people that are there within that organisation, and the continuity is to do with that vision I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And from that, they have moved through after that into a very, unstable environment with, like you said, a lot of changes taking place, a lot of managers coming in. I think, been 5 managers and 3 caretakers, over that period in a decade. That that can never be right. And big names, with big pedigrees. Yeah. And none of them, because the thing that, I think what was so unique under Sir Alex Ferguson when we were at our best was the combination of winning games and play in an attacking and attractive style of football. It's the hardest combination to find.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So...
Well, there's winning and there's winning dirty and winning unattractive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Listen, Sir Alex Ferguson always emphasised, the 1-0 wins are the most important ones because they win us the league. Yeah. So if we had to, battle it out, we were able to do that as well. But predominantly, I think that most of the people that saw United in that particular time, they thought... they're good to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I always felt when I met people from other oppositions and they said, well, I'm a supporter of this club or that club, but I'm not really a Man United fan, but I love to watch them play, which was to me a big compliment. So this whole changes and instability has carried on and is still carrying on now. Even now with obviously Ineos coming in, and I'm sure they have all the right intentions and the right ideas to making sure that United is improving on and off the pitch to get everything right. But at the end of the day, most important thing, the whole flagship is the first team.
Yeah.
And how they perform and the results that are going with it. And unfortunately, we have to say that they obviously fall short at the moment. Is
there a manager since Sir Alex Ferguson who you've kind of thought we are on the pathway to doing or looking like something that you like to watch? Was there ever a point in the past 10 years where you've gone, okay, we're building? Or has it really been kind of too
I think
stagnant?
if there was obviously one manager that would have known and had experienced the way that we were playing in a good time was Ole.
Solskjaer, yeah.
And I'm sure that he's worked hard and pushed hard to get it then, because at the end of the day, still then the quality of the players that have to execute it. And that was the disappointing thing as well, as that with Holland eventually, obviously he lost his job because of that, is that constant inconsistency, you know, in performances and results. See, and what I can't understand, that if you've got a clear identity, and that is, I think, what United has lost a little bit, and it's very hard to get it back. The most two important thing in any successful organisation is culture and identity on and off the pitch. Now the culture on the Sir Alex Ferguson was very, very clear, right?
Yeah.
We're here to win things. To win things, we are here to work hard. Yeah, we're to compete, quality, all those things. But it's all about, revolves around winning. That whole environment was revolved around winning. And the identity is there for us to win games, right, and play an attacking and attractive style of football, because we've got an obligation to entertain the fans. In a nutshell, that was Ferguson. Now, now it's come, and you know, I'm sure that I can see that a little bit, because towards last year, but I do see that they have tried to amend, I thought, some aspects in the game that were fallen short of. Yeah. You know, last year with defensive side of things, but the problem at the moment with Manchester United, it all comes back to, you know, obviously the quality, and in some ways, you know, user and manager obviously are responsible for, you know, bringing the players in. But at this moment in time, it's really crazy if you think about how Man United struggles to score goals.
Yeah, how can that be?
I mean, that was one of the things that we never worried about.
Well, we've not really experienced that. I think this is probably the lowest amount of goals that Manchester United have averaged in the past 10 years. I think under Solskjaer we were free-flowing kind of scoring. Yeah. We 9-0 against Southampton, I think 5-1 against Roma.
Manchester United have been very fortunate to have some outstanding goal scorers. Yeah. I mean, Solskjaer was one of them. Yeah.
We've had so many good centre
forwards. Cole, Yorkie, you know, they were goal scorers. Now we've got players that can score a goal. Garnacho can score a goal. He's not a goal scorer. Højlund, can score a goal. He's not a goal scorer. Zirkzee is brought in, still young, still come to terms with the expectation of playing for such a big club. The demands are much higher than playing in Bologna. Yeah. In Italy, you know what I mean, you're much more relaxed. Now they feel the pressure, and that does something. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then we've got players, young player like Diallo. Anthony has never done anything. You know, the moment he stepped foot in Manchester, and that helped. Bruno Fernandes, you know, again, can score a goal, but he's not a goal scorer. Yeah. And that is what United's always had. And we don't have that at the moment. Yeah. Man City, they've got a goal scorer. Haaland, you know what I mean? Liverpool's got a goal scorer, Salah. Yeah. And maybe a few other, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that is a big thing.
So do you think, would you say that the technical and physical quality of the Manchester United squad currently, do you think it is as bad as it does look at the moment, or do you think the player quality, both technically and physically, is there?
No, I think there's some deficiencies there, because it shows. It has showed. It shows, obviously, facts and numbers don't lie. You know, it is. You know, there's no coming away from it. It's unfortunately, it is one of the poorest, if not the poorest, start in the league. Like, look in Europe. You know, I don't think we've won a game for a year. No, you know, just draw. You look at these oppositions, and that would never be up for debate normally. Porto, it's a good team, but listen, we go there and we beat them. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
do you think the standards have dropped quite dramatically?
Yeah, it has, and I think the deficiencies are. We still got some really good players with experience. You know, don't get me wrong, but we fall short in other departments in terms of intensity and energy and lacks and tactical defensive discipline a lot of times. Yeah. You see the goals that we concede, that people just, you know, how they easy can run through, where they let players just run off them. You know, these are, you know, mental attitude things. These are tactical coaching things. You can't take any, you know, like I said before with us with Ferguson. Ferguson praised that clean sheet so much, so often. He was so sharp. There was a clear structure. This is what we do. There's no coming away from it. There's no discussion. On the ball, freedom. Yeah. Freedom, no problem. Because you guys find your solutions. We show you how that's done, but you guys come up with a solution, because that enhances creativity. That's creates some predictability. You can't defend that. Different, but defensively, quick transition, it's a mental thing. Yeah. Yeah, and obviously a physical thing to some extent, but those two things. And that is a lot of things, I think, that, because I think that's, for me, that's how it comes across. I think, most of the teams, I think, if not all, that play against Man United, home or away, go, we have a go here.
Yeah, we stand a chance. We're in the game.
Yeah, because they because obviously they look at other opposition that come to Old Trafford and done well.
Yeah.
You know, and most of the time they've been brave, they've been bold, and they exposed Man United sort of on the weaknesses that they had at the back.
But do you believe that the way Manchester United set up off the ball, it confuses the life out of me? Because we went from last season having a situation where we had too much space in the midfield, and we were asking Casemiro to play the role of 4 players in the centre. So we were pressing so high, but the defensive line was so low.
Yeah.
So we weren't compact enough to squeeze the pitch.
Correct.
This season, we've jumped even further across, because now, instead of pressing in, I think, a 4-1-4-1, which we used in last season, with Casemiro, 2 midfielders and 2 wingers, slightly narrow and deeper. Now we've gone to 4 up front or 3 up front.
You want to really play the pressing game. It's really key how you set up first and foremost, but that the players understand where do we want to get the ball and what is the trigger to release the press.
Yeah.
And when that happens, like you said before, the back line has to step up, which means a lot of space at the back.
Yeah.
That means the goalkeeper has to sweep, which Onana can do, not a problem at all. But if you don't, like I said, if let's say, the ball goes to the left-hand side, and let's say Garnacho releases himself, but Marcus Rashford is still on the right-hand side high up, that will never work. Yeah, they have to come in. It's a constant game of, shuffling across and sliding. And that has been the problem a lot of times in United.
Talk about the unity, kind of like the collectiveness. Because when it presses, it feels like individuals pressing rather than kind of
as a team press.
A team press,
Yeah.
Is that what you're alluding to there?
Yeah.
How would you say that's a mesh of a coaching issue and a player issue, or would you say for that to happen for as long as it has?
If it's a player's issue, it's a mental issue.
Yeah,
players always like the easy way.
Yeah,
ask him.
The cheating, the press.
No, but you can ask a player. You've got a choice. You can press or just stay in your position. What do you think he's going to do? Because pressing makes him tired.
Yeah.
But no, there is no question. When we go to press and we do it for certain reasons, then everybody goes. And it's just a mental thing. It's just an attitude thing.
And do you think that's been the thing for 10 years? Just a mental attitude?
Yeah, because, well, it looks like it, because there's no manager that has been able to sustain it. And at the end of the day, you look back again, look across, look at the club, Liverpool and the club. You know how many years has been at the Liverpool club? 10 years. And in the beginning, he's working too hard and training too hard, because he knew the ability to sustain that. You have to have the highest physicality, the energy and the levels to do it, the intensity to do it. But anything is driven by your mentality.
Yeah.
But everybody does it. It makes so much easier. Yeah. It makes it so much easier. And I think credit to him, because the players started to, you always go to a period where you go like this and then you fall back, and then you're up there and you sustain it. And that's where your peak performances come and your successes come. But it's easy. No, it doesn't work.
Change it. Let's do something else. Do you think Manchester United have been too eager to change in the past 10 years?
In what way?
Manager, style?
Well, listen, at the end of the day, people always look at, if you look at David came in, and I think he sort of misjudged the sort of size.
What, the size of the job?
The size of the task, and think, I think if you would, in hindsight, if you would have done it again, I think you probably would have tweaked a few things, I think, but that's by the by. Then they bring in Louis van Gaal, which I thought was never a really good fit, because, Louis is always about himself, and he didn't really respect the Premier League as such, and never mind the style of Man United, so I knew it was going to be laboured, possession-based, keep the ball, 75% possession, no shots at goal. So that was the problem. Then Mourinho came in, which is very pragmatic. He's all about winning. He doesn't give about style. Again, that was the right solution. And for whatever reason, what happened, because he is a successful manager, he did win a trophy for us. He got a second in the league. So there were a lot of good things there. However, I never could understand his attitude at times when he was like in front of the cameras for Manchester United. You know, he didn't seem to like to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're managing Manchester United. You should be proud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was a strange one. So I don't know how it worked, but almost his exit was manufactured because there was becoming a rift between him and the fans and everything.
Yeah. It's like a
obviously,
comedy
hence
show.
that Ollie came in. Obviously, because he said he knew the club and fans and blah blah blah, and we sort of reached out, and which had an effect. It was a little bit a situation. Look, the bad teacher has left.
Yeah, it was a bit more
the classroom, and the good teachers come in, and everybody is happy, and you know what I mean. So that had nothing to do much with coaching. It was more that the players felt released almost, and got back a level of freedom to play, and you saw that, and that was so disappointing in that respect, because when Ollie then was given a job, you know, permanently, then that inconsistently started to creep in again.
Yeah.
And you know, so change. But you know, I mean, people ask me all the time. He says, you know, in 2013 when you won the league last time with Sir Alex Ferguson, and yeah, but the team was old, it was aging. And I tell everybody every time, believe me, if Sir Alex Ferguson would have carried on,
he would have won again.
With that squad. Yes, we would have made a few new buys because we've already discussed it, which players we were looking at. And we made a few, and maybe one or two players would have moved on. And I tell you, 100%, we would have been there and thereabouts again.
Who would? You don't have to tell us, but who was on the list if you were to stay there another season? Who would you have brought?
I remember on the top of my head, I think we were looking at Gundogan, midfield, Scholes.
Dortmund, yeah.
You know, legs and all this and that and the other, and you can see why.
Yeah.
I think even Royce, we're looking at him. Who else were we looking at? I can't off the top of my head, but we had obviously quite a few players. But like I said, we still had that, you know, that experience.
So they were true David Moyes signings, the ones that come in under him.
Yeah. We had nothing to do with that.
No. There was this conversation that happened. Obviously, Manchester United drew to Fenerbahce. Jose Mourinho said that he wanted to manage in the Premier League again, lower down the table, perhaps. Was there ever a thinking that Jose Mourinho, in your or Sir Alex Ferguson's mind, should have been the Manchester United manager after you two?
Mourinho?
Yeah.
I'm sure that he would have been keen, but you know, I have to say you need to look at, and I mean the thing as well is if you look at the whole thing, how the whole transition of Sir Alex Ferguson be managed.
Yeah.
Is in my opinion, because you know I think that there was only two ways to do it, you know, two tracks. I mean, it's whether you know that Sir Alex Ferguson wants to sort of step down at a certain time, you make him part of it, so you sort of phase him out, but you make him part of that transition. In other words, you make him help decide, okay, who's going to be the next manager.
Yeah.
He did that in case with David Moyes as well, but what I'm saying is a bit more in-house to making sure that you keep that stability and continuity. So you keep running everything on the same track.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with the control room, so to speak.
Yeah, I get.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And then over time, that player comes more to the forefront, and Sir Alex goes more to the background. You know, still there, and then you got a smooth transition from within. The other track is from without, obviously, which happened, and then you need to look at, okay, does that manager have the capabilities to manage the size of the club of Manchester United? And you look at, there's not many that many around, younger managers that need to have the personality and charisma, which you think would Klopp be a good fit? I think yes, because of what he's shown me at Liverpool, and I think he would have had the right thing. Would Pep Guardiola be the right fit? 100%. I think he would have cracked on, because he's very clear on what he wants and how he wants it, and people to buy in, and he understands the magnitude of the size of Manchester United. Managed Barcelona, managed Bayern Munich, you know what I mean? Ancelotti, you know what I mean? Big manager, you know, so many things.
Someone who's got the
but people that can handle that whole, the whole thing. Because the moment is when you suddenly don't. Let's say even Mourinho was obviously a big manager with a big personality and everything. But even still, then when you saw, you know, the results and the performances were not, going, you start criticised, and you know what I mean.
Just before we move on into the quickfire questions, I did want to ask you: Did you make anything? Was you disappointed of the Ineos kind of situation with Sir Alex Ferguson?
Well, it's one of those situations where I think you need to carefully weigh up, because at the end of the day, I've not been part of these conversations. You know, changes are happening all the time. You know, maybe, I don't know, it could have even been a request of Sir Alex, you know what I mean?
Very much, yeah.
The big problem is, in my opinion, is communicate. Just be clear to everybody.
What's
you know
happened?
what I mean? Don't let it float around the air, and then people start, oh, it's ridiculous, it's scandalous, it's this. Of course, Sir Alex Ferguson's contribution to Manchester United has been undeniable. You know, his success has been unparalleled. So much to give, so much to, it's crazy. But I think I looked at it, and obviously you have to understand he's turning 83 in December. He's still, you know, a board member, you know, of the club, and in that respect still involved. So the key for me, the last thing I would want to do around the situation is get it sensationalised, which a lot of times happens.
I think that's what I thought happened.
You know, how can it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think to myself, you know, be careful a little bit. Yes, if that, but it could all be ended by just communicate.
Yeah.
Maybe a statement from Sir Alex himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have decided that. End of.
Boom. Put it to bed.
Yeah, but that is also a little bit instrumental, I think, for Manchester United over the last
But yeah, they've never communicated.
decade. I mean, the stuff, again, the media, remember the Mourinho Pogba issue?
Yeah.
In the papers, in the media, every single day. Those things need to be dealt with behind four walls.
Like the Ten Hag Sancho stuff.
Same
stuff
thing,
like
again.
It's just a circus, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it should not happen.
Moving from the core podcast into what we like to call Quickfire Questions. We've got about 10 questions here we just want to ask you to get some interesting insight into, obviously, your career and stuff. Who has been the most intelligent footballer you've worked with?
I'm glad you asked me the most intelligent rather than well, least intelligent. Now, we had plenty, but I you know, obviously Scholes was, you know, fantastic player in the midfield, the way that he read the games and everything. You know, Giggsy as well, in terms of the way how he came to the scene, young, you know, explosive, you know, aggressive, you know, full of flair, how he's adapted his game over the years. Yeah. You know, very intelligent players, both of them.
There's always like a video that goes around of Giggs playing against Real Madrid at home in like one of the last years of his career, and I think he played midfield. And he was just brilliant. It's just sensational. Who's not the best player in training, but who is the best trainer as a player you've had?
Well, I have to honestly say the environment that Sir Alex Ferguson created, even before I came first team coach, was all based on work ethic, hard work and all that. So I honestly, you know, there was never ever been a session that I was involved in that I would basically have to stop the session, for instance, say, listen guys,
it's not good enough.
It's not good enough. You don't put any effort in and all that. That was never ever the case. Never. They're all like, every session afterwards, every single player wanted to do extra.
Wow.
Every single one, whether it was Rio with Vidic working on long passes, every day. All that debate as well, and I get frustrated about that with all those teams and on all this strength and conditioning side. We can't do finishing, this and that. We did finishing every day.
Yeah, that's another thing. The players, obviously, Gary Neville talks about this, Roy Keane talks about this. They know their limits. They know what they want to play to. Exactly. When the sports science comes in, they felt that it was almost put a cap on when they could have gone further. And yeah, like what you're saying there, there's always room for extra.
No, especially on the technical side of things, yeah. Even if it's 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
High quality.
Yeah. The best goal you've ever seen in person?
Well, it's probably that Robert van Persie. The Robert van Persie volley, I thought, because it was also the Rooney overhead kick as well, in some way, because it was instinctive, like. But
the video of Sir Alex Ferguson where he jumps up out of the thing, and he's like, "Effing hell!"
Yeah.
The immediate reaction.
Yeah, it is. But that sometimes can happen. There's spectacular goals, but the one from Van Persie was, like I said, straight from the training ground.
Yeah.
It was. I knew exactly what was going to happen because I saw it happen, and and then hit it so sweet.
That's brilliant. The player with the most natural ability?
I think you have to go back to Giggsy, I think.
Yeah.
You know, if you saw him and you look at him when he was young and he was quick, he was mobile, agility and everything, fantastic left foot. I've never seen a player with so much disguise.
Oh, right, okay.
Really disguise, and a disguise is one of the biggest things to dominate 1v1s, and you're just dropping your shoulder and you
so
could
interesting because he wasn't the strongest player on his right foot.
No.
But him being one-footed but still being that good, 1v1 made him...
Yeah, and later on, when I sort of had him coming to the latter stage of his career, the way he adapted his game, he's obviously, he started to do yoga, what helped him a lot. He used much more changing angles, like little turns, to change things. But his clever passing, his vision, and it was just a lovely player to watch.
Yeah. Hardest thing, coaching task that Sir Alex Ferguson's ever asked you to do?
Yeah, well, I think to prepare the team for the two Champions League finals against Barcelona, to set you up, to making sure that the players understood the different phases we would go through, and then be able to react to it in that way. In hindsight, is a great thing, like I said, and it doesn't work. So should he picked him? Should he picked him? Should he do this? Should he do that? I think the game revolves around, details, small moments. But we have to say they had obviously a fantastic Messi at the time, Xavi, Iniesta, world-class players. We had world-class players, but they came out on top.
The best country you've ever coached in?
I still think it has to be England.
Yeah.
Especially because when I came here, it's a football culture through and through. Whatever league you in, wherever you go, it's passionate fans. The atmosphere is fantastic. It's brilliant. I have to say, although my professional career started in Qatar, I've got a soft spot. Yeah. A soft spot for that, and to go with Australia to the World Cup in Qatar was almost full circle. Yeah. Which is great. And if you look at the development that has taken place in Qatar of football, where I was, part of it at some stages, was very rewarding to look back onto.
You're kind of ahead of the curve with the Qatar, because obviously now it's gone big, and you were there far before it. Yeah. Your favourite current coach?
Current coach? Well, I do have to say, I like I said, I've got massive appreciation for obviously Jurgen. Just stepped aside, Jurgen Klopp, because of his whole charisma, his personality, his demeanour. You can see that people want to play for him, and I like his style. Come on, Vollgas football.
Yeah. I've always,
I have to say I like Pep as well, because he is, again, it brings a different dimension, that kind of a dominance where you think, how is it possible that people cannot get the ball? You know what I mean? To just move, you know what I mean, and slick, and he's great. But you have to. I always keep an eye on some of the younger new ones that pop up. We see Hutzler now again at Brighton, which again, credit to Brighton that they constantly find
something else.
They find whether it's De Zerbi, who came up with fantastic style of football at Marseille now, and you look at him. I think I rate Arne Slot as well. I know him from Holland. He's done well. Similar traits, likability factor, good communicator.
Really good talker.
Yeah, really clear in getting things across. Yeah.
I thought he was so well spoken.
He is.
And the last one is the best young player you've coached. I think I know who this is going to be, because we've said it, but probably somewhat. I guess maybe from the reserves, in terms of a player you seen coming through who you thought, that's going to be the one.
Well, I was thinking, obviously, when I really was young and started, because obviously we all know about Ravel Morrison, don't we?
Yeah, that's.
But obviously he's like, a story of its own, and it's a shame really, because that he's never really reached the full potential and the platform he should have been at, because he had that natural ability. When he went through that skill program, he was just gliding past people and everything, but.
We always, we've had another guest on who said the exact same thing as you just said, and we don't like to say it because it's almost everyone says it, but it is true, and he was the.
It is, and everybody would say, the times that he then came up and stepped up, and even the first team players went, wow, you know what I mean. But then again, it shows again what personality, attitude, mentality does. Yeah. to people's careers.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. This has been a brilliant episode. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have too. But thank you for watching. As always, please like, comment and subscribe and rate us 5 stars on all podcast streaming platforms. And we'll be back again next week for another review of the Premier League's action. Thank you very much and we'll see you again.